Here we go, video number 3 from answering questions people had from my gaming setup. You know, the low-hanging, easy-to-pluck fruit of YouTube content while I'm sitting here in my home office with absolutely no materials to be able to use to make videos. All of the parts and stuff are at our warehouse, which we have not been to since the lockdown, and then I have nothing here to do videos about. So answering questions you guys have been asking me about my setup has made it kind of easy to make some content. So thank you for that. But the other really common question, not just about the keyboard and the monitor, has been, Jay, tell us about that chair. Well, I've already told you about this chair. I told you about this chair when I first got it about 3 years ago, but I understand a lot of my viewers are probably not, they probably joined since that video and haven't seen it. So this is a long-term user report about my autonomous ergo chair, which is now an old version because now they have the ergo chair 2, but that's not this one.
We interrupt this video to bring you a special message from iFixit. Free iFixit by the makers of iFixit. Got a crappy graphics card? That's okay. Fix it with iFixit. iFixit has all the tools you need to make your life better. Got a dirty phone screen? That's okay. You can fix it with iFixit. Thirsty? That's okay. Fix that thirst with iFixit. Refreshing. Use iFixit to fix your computer or even just upgrade it. Oh, iFixit can fix anything, even this and this. Got a problem with your friend? Fix him too with iFixit. They'll appreciate it. Guaranteed.
Disclaimer, iFixit does not actually cause spills, fix friends, fix cars, fix tires, or fix things that are not designed to be fixed with iFixit tools. But that's okay, because iFixit's cool anyway.
To find out more, click the link in the description below.
Yeah, iFixit Explosion.
All right, so like I said, about 3 years ago, Autonomous reached out to us. They sent us a couple of chairs. I've got one here. I've got one at the studio. They're the same company that sent us the sit-stand desk. They're known as a company that's being fairly inexpensive and more at an entry-level cost point for things like sit-stand desks and comfortable long-term sitting chairs. They did not sponsor this video. This is just a long-term report of someone who's now been using this chair for about 3 years. And I can tell you right now, with the amount of people asking me about this chair, I felt like this video was important to make because this chair has a lot of asterisks with it. If you really want a long-term sitting chair, or whatever that's called, like up to a 24-hour chair, if you're not sure how chairs are rated, they're rated in hours, which is meaning how long you could sit in the chair, and the posture and the support and all of that is adequate for your health. And so the highest rated chair is 24 hours, right? If you think a $300 or $400 chair is expensive because you're used to seeing $99 chairs at Office Depot or Office Max, go to Herman Miller. Go to Herman Miller online, look at their prices, and then come back. And you'll see the perspective of which we're talking about now when we talk about price. As someone who used to work in IT in an office environment for years and years, I've sat on the cheap, broken down, hand-me-down chairs that have been passed around the office and have rips in the leather and just they creak and they lean to one side. And then we got some budget and we actually got some Herman Miller chairs. I can tell you right now that there is legitimately a difference. Now the reason why I'm telling you that is to understand a chair and its comfort. There's a few things you have to know. One, the support system, the support structure of the chair. Clearly the autonomous chair is a foam padded cloth butt, and then the back is a mesh back that has an adjustable lumbar support. Now adjustability is important because we all have different shapes of bodies and body types and such. And my perspective of this chair is coming to you from someone that is 6'4" tall, and that's this many in centimeters. Yeah, I'm a pretty tall dude, but I'm also a pretty big dude. I've got a 40-inch waist, and I also am 250 to 260 pounds depending on my mental state at that time of the year. So I already have a hard time finding a chair that's comfortable. It's one of those things where like a couple of inches in height doesn't really seem like that big of a deal until you realize like the lumbar support doesn't actually reach your lumbar, the head support's too low so your head's constantly back, the arms are too low because you're just like, oh, I'm sagging now because I can't get the adjustability of the arms high enough. It's just like if you've ever sat in a car for someone that's a few inches shorter than you, after they drove and you get in and you're like, ah, everything's all cramped. It's only a couple of inches difference. Yeah, those are the kind of tolerances we're talking about with my body type when it comes to this chair. So obviously, unless you share an exact body type with me, your mileage is gonna vary when it comes to some of these subjective things. So what I'm gonna try and talk about is not just the comfort of the chair for a guy my size, but also the adjustability of the chair and then how the chair has held up over the last 3 years. Now, as I said in the intro of this video, This is the old version. They have made some changes to the chair with what they call the Ergo 2. Phil has that chair, but then again, Phil weighs like a fraction of what I do and he's a fraction of my height. Therefore, chairs last longer for him. So I feel like I'm a pretty good test of long-term durability of this chair when it gets kind of a beating with someone like me who's constantly putting pressure on the gas cylinder and is leaning back in the chair. And yeah, so there's a lot of things to talk about. Now, in terms of construction, it's got all the basic stuff you would expect. The butt can actually adjust in and out, so you can try and get your knees and where the cushion meets your knees at a comfortable position. The backrest is obviously, it leans back and it has a spring that's adjustable in there so that you can determine how stiff it is. For a guy my size, I don't feel like it's ever stiff enough. I've got it max stiff right now, but when people sit in the chair and they lean back, they always react like they're gonna fall. So I think that could be stiffer. Obviously it has a gas adjust height on there. Fortunately, the gas adjust on me has not started to leak over time where it sort of starts to sag the longer you sit in it. It holds its position, but to be fair, I usually sit with it bottomed out anyway because of my height. The armrests are adjustable height-wise. They are not adjustable angle-wise. Some chairs will allow you to take the armrest and angle them out, which if you're kind of sitting with a wide sort of a arm print on your desk like I sort of do, that would be welcomed. This chair does not allow that, so I always feel like my arms are on the inside of the support rather than the bottom of my forearm. I feel like they more or less on the outside, kind of at an angle, and it's not that comfortable. A lot of times, adjusting them inward is good too, because if you're sitting narrow, then you have full support, not having it push on these veins on your arm right here, starting to give you some arm fatigue. We'll talk about long-term fatigue towards the end of this video. You might have heard right there. I'm not sure how well the mic is picking it up, but it's definitely a squeaky chair. But in terms of adjustability too, they adjust in and out, but they do not lock their position. Some chairs have not only a button you can lift to make it go up and down, but another button to lock the arm in an in and out position. These just sort of slide around. And what I've sort of noticed over time is these tend to get looser and really just sort of flop. The left armrest on my chair that's at the studio is like on its last leg. It's hanging on by a thread. It feels like it's gonna fall off. The screws are not accessible. The screws are not accessible to tighten it up. So once it falls off, it's done. In fact, some folks have reached out to me on Twitter who had the same chair and have actually complained that their armrests have fallen off, which obviously kind of defeats the entire purpose of being some sort of an office chair. Now, let's talk about chair design for a second here. The reason why you would want a mesh back rather than any sort of a foam backing is because of the fact that the mesh is always going to contour to your body and it's not going to wear out or stretch or lose its padding. A lot of high-end chairs also have a mesh butt for the very reason that I just described. And I think that one of the reasons why the autonomous chair does not use a mesh pad for the bottom is because of cost. And it's one of those things where the more premium materials you use, the more expensive it's gonna be. Now this chair comes in at a fraction of the price of the high-end chairs when it comes to like Herman Miller and other brands that are using full mesh. But it does have a feature that is a must-have for me with chairs, and that is an adjustable headrest. Because I'm constantly sitting in the non-proper position with leaning back in my chair with my feet up on the desk, I need some way to support my head, and I don't want it to be on the top of the backrest because that puts pressure on the back of your neck and it can start to cause problems there. The headrest on this is adjustable, both the angle and the height. But one of the problems I found with the headrest on this chair is it constantly falls out of position. Like I'll put it up to the highest position and I'm leaning against it, and it's also a mesh headrest, so it's always comfortable. And so it breathes as well, and that's one of the reasons why you would want to mesh back. It also breathes so you don't get a lot of sweat build up on your back. If you've sat in a leather chair for any length of time, even in a cold room, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The problem is I can then sit up, and then sometimes the headrest will just fall down. Even though it's got some pretty strong clicks in there in terms of when it holds its position, I think it's just like a little spring and ball kind of a bearing deal that just sort of sits in a position there. Sometimes I think the stars just align and it just goes bloop and it falls down. And it's really kind of annoying, and it's kind of embarrassing when it happens too when other people are watching. They're always like, wow, is it supposed to do that? The other thing too is the way that the neck position is. When it snaps into the angled position, it sounds like you're breaking it. I think it's just a flap of plastic in there that kind of clicks into a position. And so you're literally bending it and it's snapping. It sounds like it's breaking. And the problem is and it's really, really loud. So sometimes if you're leaning against it, and you push back too hard, it'll snap into another position, and that loud click right behind your head is sometimes enough to give you a headache just from the sound. If you have sensitive hearing like me, then that sound right behind your head is not good. In fact, this is what it sounds like. Over the 3 years, let's talk about my complaints with this chair and why I'm reluctant to recommend it, although I would still recommend it at the price point when you compare it to the competition. First of all, let's talk about the competition. At the price point of this chair, you're gonna find the stupid racing seats that should never be an office chair to begin with. And this is gonna be totally subjective, but I think a lot of people are gonna agree with me on this. The whole concept of let's take what looks like a racing seat out of a car. And I've seen people actually comment like, those are real seats they've taken out of the automotive industry and put wheels on them. No, they're not. They are not. They are not real automotive seats. They might seem like it, but they've got extremely hard padding. They've got bolstering, which is not necessary for an office chair. In fact, what the bolstering can end up doing is causing you long-term fatigue over time of pushing on your pressure points of your thighs and your back, causing you pain. And I already said they're stiff. They're always leather, which means they don't breathe. You're gonna sweat in them. And then they always come with a stupid pillow that you're supposed to put behind your head because there's literally no ergonomic design to them when it comes to head support. Remember, headrests in a car are designed to do two things. One, they always protrude from the back of the seat coming forward to meet your head, so you're not like this. And then two, they're designed to absorb an impact. If you're hit from behind, they're designed to absorb an impact and keep your neck straight so you don't get whiplash. They're not meant to sit in all day long. You can thank the rise of esports and MLG and all these stupid live streams of promoting these chairs, but obviously I'm speaking from a very subjective standpoint where I have a very strong distaste for the racing seat car chairs. And that's coming to you as a car guy. So let that sink in for a minute. But that was a subjective rant, and you probably disagree with me at 100%, and that's perfectly fine. If you're comfortable with the chair and you like the chair, then buy the freaking chair, it's your money. But when it comes to actual comfort, the reason why you'll find chairs that look drastically different like this is because they use a lot of design, a lot of long-term science involved in designing a chair that's comfortable. So the alternative to what you're seeing me sit in now is something like that, usually at that price point. Now, I do know that Office Depot, Office Max, all the other office supply stores do have chairs in the couple $100 price range that are very similar to what I'm sitting in right now. That's probably another very worthwhile alternative to the autonomous chair. I've never sat in any of those, so I can't really speak to them. But I can tell you a couple of things. One, this chair is a freaking static nightmare. In fact, this is the chair we used when we did our static test with our video where we were intentionally shocking the crap out of a computer because all I had to do was sit in it and slide down it once, and I was so charged up, I could get a 2-inch arc to come off of my finger when it comes to touching something. 3.0 right there. Oh! And that's specifically because of the cloth bottom and the mesh back. And if you live in a dry environment like I do, because I live in the desert of Southern California, and you have a dry, windy day, man, this thing is just charging you up. I mean, sometimes, no joke, I'll look down and the hair on my arms are standing straight up because of the amount of static electricity I've generated just sitting in this chair. But again, that is specifically because of the mesh and cloth back design. Now, some of the really expensive chairs actually have like grounding type devices built into the chair that will keep you from becoming statically charged. But at the price point of this chair, you're not gonna find that. In terms of build quality, I feel like over time, the wheel bearings have dried out. They're just basic caster wheels. There's nothing super crazy about them. They're not like the hollow, the Halo design where they've got no spoke or whatever in there. They're kind of a crazy looking deal. In fact, when we were at DreamHack, we were wheeling the chair from the hotel over to the convention center, and the air was really damp and a slight amount of rain happened. And I say slight amount, I mean like, it wasn't being actively rained on. There was just some moisture on the ground. It picked up that moisture. It worked its way into the bearings, which are greased. Water mixed with grease is obviously not a good thing, and the wheels practically locked up. Now, when it all dried out, it did sort of go back to normal, but the wheels do not roll very freely. I'm sitting on carpet, so that's kind of a fine deal. But if you're someone that's gonna be moving your chair all around, let's say an IT office or some sort of a lab, and you're moving the chair all around, you're gonna find it's gonna pick up a lot of dust, a lot of dirt in that bearing, which is not very sealed, and then it's gonna start not rolling very good. As I mentioned already, the gas canister or the gas piston has held my weight no problem over the years. I've already talked about the armrest wanting to fall off, and I've talked about the headrest wanting to fall down. But one of my biggest issues with the chair is its amount of adjustability has made it a noisy, creaky mess. And it's not really picking it up too bad right now on camera. When I'm in live stream, sometimes I make a very subtle movement or adjustment, and that's when it makes all the noise, is when you barely move. Of course, it's not doing it right now. So you'll find there's a lot of play in the locked positions. And what you're hearing there is that pin that's pushed in to keep it from leaning. It does make a lot of creaks. But I mean, again, at the price point, you probably are not going to be too concerned with that. And unless you're wanting to run out and spend $1,500 on a Herman Miller chair, this one's probably going to hold up just fine. So although I've had all these complaints about the chair, I haven't replaced the chair because I've yet to find another chair that meets the body type like mine, which is a little bit, I'm kind of ultra wide like a monitor. I'm heavy, I'm tall, and it kind of ticks all those boxes. Phil has the Ergo Chair too, and even though that he basically can swim in the chair, he agrees that at the price point and the comfort and the adjustability and the feature set of the chair makes it worthwhile for even a guy like him that the chair is way too big for. In fact, I believe he's sitting in the Vertigear office type chair at the studio, and he actually likes that one better. I was far too big for that chair, and so I was sitting on the supports and the bolsters, and it wasn't a good deal for me whatsoever. If you're looking for a chair that kind of ticks a lot of the boxes, it's got good breathability because of the mesh, it's got good support over time, the foam has not broken down when I get up, it still has its shape, it doesn't have a big dent built into it because of my big old butt. It's perfectly adjustable for a guy even my size and my height with how far the butt cushion can move outward or inward. I just wish the armrest would lock in one position. And for the price, I would probably call this a 5-year chair, to be honest. After 3 years and the way one of my two have really kind of degraded versus this one still holding together, I'd say within the next 2 years, this chair would need to be replaced where it's no longer giving you the support that you need, or something just might flat out break on it. But it's one of those things too that unless you're gonna spend a crap ton for a chair, you're probably not gonna find a better chair for the price point. So, a lot of you guys have asked me about my chair. That's it. That's all I have to say about it. It gets the job done. I sit down, it doesn't fall apart. A guy my size can't ask for much more than that. So what chair are you using? Are you using one of those little $40 Office Max chairs that have a very low lumbar support, no upper body or neck support, and you basically have no armrests? Or are you actually sitting in something that's designed for nerds like us to be sitting at our desk all day, every day eating chips, and they hold up? What are you guys using? Comment down below with what chair you think would be a good complement or replacement for the Ergo chair, and maybe I'll check it out. Because I've been shopping Herman Miller, but I just can't pull the trigger. All right guys, thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.